Adele here, and today I am so excited to have as my guest Cynthia Good. Cynthia is amazing. I'm just going to try to summarize this amazing bio in 30 seconds or less. Welcome to the show, Cynthia.
Thank you, Adele.
All
Hi.
right, everybody. This is going to be awesome. So I'm going to read this really quick because I really didn't want to cut out any of Cynthia's achievements because she's done so many fascinating things. Cynthia and I connected through our love of dance. I guess it was a few years ago.
Oh, at least it's been a decade. At least
Yeah,
a
we're
decade.
both dance addicts. And the more I got to know Cynthia, the more I thought, oh my God, she has so much to share. If you're out there feeling isolated or you're frustrated in your business or you're wanting to create more success on your terms, join in. So here we go. Cynthia is an entrepreneur, women's activist, post journalist, author, and creator of Pink Magazine and LittlePink.com, offering world-class events and consulting to Fortune 500 companies committed to gender diversity. Cynthia holds a Master of Fine Arts degree from NYU's Poetry in Paris program, class 2019. She launched 2 women's business magazines, Atlanta Women and the internationally distributed Pink Magazine, both featuring women leaders and career success secrets. Previously, she has reported and anchored the evening news at TV stations all around the country, including Fox 5 in Atlanta. She has interviewed presidents and prisoners, reported live from the Olympics and the Democratic National Convention with Cuba and Nicaragua. Cynthia has authored several books, including Vaccinating Your Child and Words Every Child Must Hear, and created Good for Parents TV, and is an International Merit Award winner of Atlanta Review's 2016 International Poetry Competition. She also started Chapter 11 bookstores and the Horseradish Grill restaurant. Awesome place to eat, by the way. A dancer and yoga instructor, Cynthia is mom to 2 amazing sons, Alden and Julian. She lives in Atlanta and Baja California and Mexico now, I think, with her Havanese Zuni. Hey, Zuni.
Zuni.
Tony, thank you for taking time out of your crazy schedule to
Course.
interview. So, Cynthia, I'm so excited to give our viewers a better sense of what has worked for you. Especially now with COVID. I mean, it's not just COVID, but wouldn't you agree that for quite some time, a lot of women in business and leadership have been trying to juggle so many different things at the same time under the idea that somehow all these pieces should like cram together and work. And perhaps, you get this one working and that one falls off the edge of the table. You focus on that one and this one falls off. And I'm so curious, since you've done so many things, what did you discover along the way helped you not go crazy and to be able to achieve what you wanted to achieve? And let's just start from there and deep dive from that point.
Well, it's been a journey, Adele, and the same things that worked a decade ago don't work today. And I think we're always evolving, but everything you said is so true. I think as women, we always have historically really juggled so many things, right? And I think during COVID, it's really, really hit women hard. 2.3 million women have left the workforce over the course of the pandemic. And, a lot of them, the jobs, they were forced out. But many times I think the women have decided that it's just too much to juggle. And at the end of the day, what do you really need in order to live a good life with all that stress? So for me, when things get crazy and difficult and I'm feeling a lot of pressure lately, this is my new thing and it works for me. I just shut it down. I could be on, really intense deadline. I meet my commitments, of course, but even if I have big deadlines, I will just shut it down. And when I'm in Mexico, I will walk to the beach. When I'm in Atlanta, I'll take my dog and we'll walk around the block. I think for me, it's been really important to prioritize the things that make me happy, for lack of a better, I know that sounds maybe,
Hey, that right there, even though it's sometimes seen as
Pollyanna or whatever.
Pollyanna or so big, like the brain kind of explodes. It really is why we're here. It's really why I do these shows. I want to know, what were some of the challenges you faced in as you navigated this? What were the biggest things you were sitting with, and maybe a moment or two where you discovered an aha, or something that set you on a new course that was
Yeah.
unexpected? Because you
Yeah,
did
well,
this
I
didn't
mean,
just
just in
happen.
terms of the day to day,
Mhm.
shifting the business in terms of living with COVID and how it impacted the business has been mind numbing and transformative in a lot of really positive ways. But just in terms of overall well being, when it's the toughest, and we've all been there, and
Mhm.
have to be all in because you're like this, that's when I have learned to stop at the time, like they say with meditating, right? If you don't have time to meditate, then you need to meditate
I'd say
twice as
more.
much. Well, so that's kind of my interpretation
What?
of that. And the crazy thing is, I shut it down and I come back new and can be so much more productive and really coming, I think, from the right place rather than from that place of anxiety and fear and scarcity.
Yes, love that. And was there a specific challenge that had you going, "Ooh, I really need to discover a new way of doing this"? Was there, like a lot of people reach a moment where, what used to work, I've got to do things a different way. Sometimes it's a new challenge, sometimes it's a change in life circumstance. And you've been through quite a.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the last 5 years have been very transformative for
Yeah,
me.
we were
And of
talking
course,
about that. Could you like to
yeah,
share
I
a
mean,
little bit?
sure, I'm happy to share it. I write a lot about this. I write about it. I write, I'm a poet, so I write a lot about it in that context because I think sharing the real stuff is so important. And I just feel like, especially we as women and professionals are often so silenced to the degree that we don't even know what our voice sounds like. But over the course of 5 weeks, my life had been turning upside down, and all that culminated over the course of about 5 weeks. This is like 3 years ago, coming up on 3 years ago, where I left my marriage of 27 years. I was forced to move out of my home, and I found my mother having passed out and spent the next week with her until she died in ICU out in New York. So that was during 5 weeks.
I
My
remember that.
son, one of my boys, had just graduated from Columbia with highest honors, and it was a lot. And I think when you get to that point, sometimes it takes us a crisis or a series of them to confront areas of our lives where we are seriously not happy. And it just gets to the point where you say to yourself, it's not worth it, at what cost?
At
And
what
then
cost?
everything has to shift,
At
and
what.
I feel bad that hopefully for others, it won't take that kind of a catalyst.
Mhm.
But I think at some point in our lives, if we're lucky, we do confront where there are deep issues and things wrong in our lives where we need a significant course correction. And oftentimes it takes a crisis like that, I think, for those things to happen.
Right, because, I think many of us have been trained to sort of suck it up, and as long as things are manageable,
Well,
well,
yeah, I mean,
okay.
especially as women, we want
Yeah.
to fix things. We want to make everything right. We want everybody to be happy. And, you talked about interiority, which is so important. But sometimes I think we lose that along the way just because we're trying to meet all of these other commitments outside of ourselves. And we tend to put those other commitments first. And as you know, when you go on the airplane, even they say put your own oxygen mask on first. And as women, it's really hard. And oh God, there's a great quote, and I can't even tell you who said it, but it's really important. Self care is never an act of betrayal. And I love that because sometimes as women, we feel like we're selfish if we focus on ourselves. But when in reality, what I've learned, and I can only speak for myself, focusing on everybody else actually, for me, turned out to be quite manipulative.
Mhm.
If that makes sense. I imagine that makes sense to you because you work with so many people along these lines.
I do. And I love what you're saying around self-care, because I think sometimes people think self-care is yoga class, eating well, sleeping, and that's part of it. But sometimes
Sure.
self-care is dealing with something that's not working. Like you can't
Sure.
just meditate away things that are like that need to be
Right.
addressed. So
Right.
sometimes
You can't just be positive. And sometimes you just need to say, holy crap, I need to get out of this marriage, or I need to shift gears at work, or I need to live somewhere else, or, really, really big things. I need to change, my relationship with my family. There are important questions like that, I think, that are important for us to ask ourselves and have a really serious conversation, looking in the mirror. Because being positive and all of that will only carry you so far. I mean, I see
Right.
myself as a very optimistic person, but, and I think that is actually a hazard.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can. Yeah, absolutely. I think too much focus on, I guess there's a term called toxic positivity where it's positivity at all costs to the point where you're lying to yourself. I've always felt that if someone cuts you in your hand, sometimes the most positive thing to say is ow,
Right.
and not,
Yeah.
oh, I'm good,
Yes,
that you got,
exactly. Exactly.
the truth is always, the honesty is always positive. Wouldn't you agree? And sometimes that journey to my personal truth can be, a little bit, yeah, it's a journey. And so, as you navigated all these things, how did your experience coming out of, I remember that time. I do remember that time when you were going through all that. How has that informed how you are today with all the, I mean, you run like several companies, you're on the news, you're writing books, you're traveling and living in multiple places. How has that informed you to the way you do things now versus, I guess even before COVID, like it sounds like the really rough time was maybe 5 years ago. Like if we were to contrast then and now, what's different?
Well, I think then 5 years ago, I did everything I thought I was supposed to do.
Oh, say more on that, because I think a lot of women can relate to that. It
Mhm.
looks good on the outside,
Yeah,
feels
it was
crappy on
like,
the inside. Yeah. Say
it
more.
was pushing, the proverbial rock up the hill, the myth of Sisyphus. You push that rock up the hill. I was just every day got up and pushed that rock up the hill. And you know what happens? The rock gets at the top of the hill and it falls down. And that sort of was how my life felt to me. I mean, with the business, pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, with the marriage and, all these other things. And it
And I'm
wasn't
curious,
working.
was it something that you were aware you were doing, or was it just a way of being?
I was aware that I was very unhappy. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it was suggested to me, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but that I be medicated. And I did try medication for a while. And,
A lot of people
that,
do.
and I think that's helpful, definitely sometimes, during
Mhm.
different circumstances. But it, it was important not to be medicated. It was important to look at the root causes of why I was so frustrated and unhappy. And I don't think it was how I had structured my life at that time, but it was also, I think, the internal motivation in terms of why I was doing things. So for many, many years, this focus on women and women's advancement, which I'm so passionate about and continue to be passionate about, early on. And remember, this company, littlepinkbook.com, Pink Magazine, it's a 17-year-old company. And before that, I did launch Atlanta Woman. So this has been going on a long time. And it started as really wanting to make this positive impact on the world, to do what you do, Adele, which is to share these stories of these rare women business leaders, some of the most high-powered women business leaders on the planet. Carol Tomei, CEO of
Mhm.
UPS, Susan Johnson, CMO of Prudential, the president of Aflac, Teresa White, so many other extraordinary women. And I think it got to the point where, um, I'm trying to make a difference, but somehow that I think got caught up a little bit in ego. And it seemed to me to be self-serving in a way, if that makes sense to you. And I didn't really want to do it. I mean, I'm still externally, you probably wouldn't know the difference, but internally,
Mhm.
the way that I process everything is different. I do it because I'm interested. I do it because I want to do it. I'm having this conversation with you 100% because I love you and I want to have a conversation. It's not because I want everybody who's watching to come to the Pink event, which is on October 18th. And you can find all about it on littlepinkbook.com. Of course, I want you to come to the event, but that is
Yeah,
0% of my motivation. So you understand the shift in the reason
absolutely.
why. And that, I think,
I
makes all the difference.
I love that. And for those watching, we will put information on that in the notes. It's a great event. I've attended, it's awesome. But Cynthia, I love your focus on the why. I think the market or people in general have, unfortunately, it's people have gotten so overwhelmed, and there's almost a cynicism with, what you see on the internet now, because there's always an ulterior motive. Oh, I'm going to do this talk so I can get you to do what?
Right.
And
Everything's a means to an
there's
end.
a means to an end. The
Mhm.
idea that we're sharing out of pure joy, out of pure service, that your pain, I've had boatloads of pain, can be useful, that we've created something now that's actually not perfect, but can be useful to people, just because we
Sure,
want
I
to
think
share.
always sharing our stories. I mean, this is really important because where we are in this place in history, Adele, for women in particular, we have never been
I've
here.
never been in this place.
This is uncharted territory. So the more we can share, I think, our experiences on a deeper level, the more we all benefit from that.
I couldn't agree with you more. And for me, what I've discovered is how deeply baked in my subconscious a lot of these expectations were. It's not like I sat down and said, I'm going to work myself to death and I'm going to be a perfectionist. Like I didn't even know I was
Of
doing that. And
course.
I thought it was normal, really. I thought, well, everybody's constantly beating themselves up and being rough. And on the surface, I love it, looks great. Wow, Cynthia's doing this and Cynthia's doing that. And no one would have any idea of how you were feeling inside. I know people have said that to me. Well, Adele, it looked great on the surface. I'm like, "Oh, well,
Well, we all,
yeah,
struggle, I think, and are, have challenges. And, if one of my poetry teachers, she said, if you've lived to be 12 years old, you have enough to write about for the rest of your life.
yes,
But yeah, but I think the conversation is worthwhile, and some deeper thinking is really important, and not just, those superficial goals, but the bigger stuff is
yeah,
really important, because that's what constitutes your life. At the end of the day, it's really those moments. It's like dance.
oh
What
my gosh,
really the dance is about is not the pirouette and the chaîné. It's that moment between the two, right? And I think that's life, because we spend most of our time in those in between
mm,
moments.
uh,
And those are the moments when we're really living. It's in
yeah,
the elevator with your
yeah,
dog waiting to go to the
exactly,
10th floor.
exactly. And we're both Cynthia and I are dance fanatics. But if you're out there and you're looking for a way to feel better without having to open your mouth, without having to think so hard, get your butt to a dance class. It can be, just try it, just move your body. And that's how we should be living our lives, is in movement, instead of stiff like this. And because it's in the energy. I always tell all my clients that for most of my clients, English wasn't even their first language.
Mm.
Energy is the
Uh-huh.
feeling in the room, the feeling in your body, and then you've got music and you've got someone
Music,
encouraging you. What a wonderful analogy for life, and
right.
and yeah. And how did you get a sense that you have this natural creative, you've got a poet's heart, and you are combining that with of a more corporate type of, Fortune 500. These are heavy hitters, right? I mean, they're doing big business. How did you find your note that there is a way to combine these two? Because it is rather unusual what you have done.
Well, I
And
mean,
yeah,
yeah, I don't see them as really connected in my mind, because I mean, the poetry is the one thing that I do, maybe like dance to, where there is no goal. The goal is not to be published. The goal is not for anybody ever even to see it. The
but
goal
see, the
is,
thing is, everybody knows you dance. Everyone knows you write poetry. I mean, it's kind of like with me. I'm doing all this other stuff with companies, and everybody knows I'm a violinist.
Mhm.
Like it just
Yeah,
sort of oozes out.
excellent.
So I'm
Well,
curious.
so one way I integrated it was we kicked off one of the recent Pink events this past summer, with a young African American woman named Mahogany Brown, and she did a poem that she shared a poem that she had written called Black Girl Magic, and it was just super powerful and amazing. And I just felt like it set the tone for this conversation about leadership, about women in leadership roles and what that means. So I'm kind of weaving it in. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
weaving it.
we find ways to slip it in there because it makes our work so much more meaningful, enjoyable. And wouldn't you agree that when we can introduce more of the right side of things into a left-brained corporate environment, people are just happier?
Right.
There's
right.
more meaning, right?
Yeah, I mean, and this is really important. And it's also, I think, a matter of connection, which we've really lost that sense of connection over these past months during COVID. So that's one of the reasons why we were going to talk about the Pink Power Alliance, which is a
Yes.
monthly program that Pink is now offering really for these companies, for their high potential women to have deeper conversations, to get the specific skills they need, so that they can reach their goals, to see how other women have broken through. And the tagline, it's just a tagline, but I still believe in it. It's always been the Pink tagline. It's a beautiful career, a beautiful life. And the beautiful
Mhm.
career helps us in terms of the getting to the beautiful
Beautiful
life.
life.
But that's been a lot of fun. The next one, just a quick shout out, we will be featuring Vernice Armour. She is America's first female African American combat pilot. And we're doing these at
Wow.
noon EST on the last Thursday of every month. And it's a membership program. It's part of this exclusive group. And it's really, really cool. We're having a lot of these conversations like this about well-being and success and the intersection of those two.
Love it. We will post information in the link. If you've just joined us, I'm interviewing Cynthia Good of Pink Magazine and Little Pink Book, and she's sharing tips from her vast experience in leadership and working with corporate leaders. I just love deep diving. And what I'm noticing in these leadership conversations is I feel like more and more the feminine energies are being added. So it's not so much how to do X, but it's more when you're in the presence of these challenges, what happens to you inside? Do you contract? Where does your light
Yeah.
go? And all these things to help women shine in not so much of an intellectual way. I mean, they're brilliant, but leadership's not just the mindset, it's also the
Yeah.
presence.
I
Your
mean, I think you're really right. And I believe that the most effective women leaders I've ever known, like the women that I've mentioned, Jill Campbell over at Cox, the one thing that all these women have in common is they connect with people on a deeper level. They want to know you,
what a
and
concept.
they're open and vulnerable themselves. I mean, that's a leader.
Isn't
It's
that,
it's
yeah.
really, really cool.
And we all can feel it. It's not something that you
Exactly.
put on, it's just the way someone is. And my experience has been that that comes from a lot of inner work, like you said. I know I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago, and nobody is. And we're all deepening in our this thing called life and help a few people out along the way. And yeah, I mean, it's got to be fun. Otherwise, why do this?
It certainly is interesting.
So Cynthia, this is awesome, awesome. Is there anything else you want to share about the Pink Alliance? We will definitely put some notes if you're curious about tickets or information on the next Pink events. I'll put them in the comments below. Would you like to just explain a few things for people who?
Well, I mean, not really, but I should mention that just the resource of littlepinkbook.com is there. It's open to everybody. And we actually, the events, a lot of them have been videotaped lately because Cox was our technology partner. We had a very professional broadcast crew. So you can just feel free to watch any of those. They're great nuggets from these women leaders about their experiences. And it's very eye-opening, because like you said, it's just sharing other people's story. And then you get to decide, is that something that is of interest, to me? Will that work for you?
Yeah. And I've attended some of these events. I enjoyed them. So definitely try.
And you've spoken as one of our
Yes,
coaches on the
it,
Pink Power Alliance
it
too.
was awesome. It was
And you
awesome.
were fantastic.
Oh, thank
You
you.
know your
Thank you.
stuff.
What are your goals moving forward? Is there anything that you've got cooking in mind that you feel ready to announce in terms of
I
what's
mean,
next for you on your journey?
I don't have anything to promote per se, but I am seeing some of my poetry finally being published. That's really hard because it's just a different space. And I have had my chapbook has been accepted. That's the first. So that will be my first book of poems. And I don't know when it will come out, probably sometime before the end of the year for sure. So that's been a lot of fun and very rewarding.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Cynthia, this has been fabulous. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share some of your jewels of wisdom. I'm sure a lot of people will really be gleaning a lot of inspiration. I mean, it's really more energetic than intellectual. It's just sitting with someone and going, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
poetry.
Well, thank you so much, Adele, for having me and for doing this important work. You're amazing.
Yes,
I
I'm enjoying
appreciate
it.
you.
So I know
I can tell.
you've got to run because you're going somewhere. So I will get out of your hair and yeah. So hopefully everybody, if you like this, share this with your friends. We'll be putting it on YouTube and things like that with Cynthia's contact information. And would love to hear your comments. If I get any comments or questions, I'll forward them to you if that's all right
Sure,
with you.
absolutely, of course.
And we'll
I'd love
go
to
from
hear from you.
there.
All right, thank you, Adele.
Thank
Take
you,
care, everybody.
Have a good night. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.